Honey, we need to chat.
I want you to ask yourself these questions, and I want you to ask them honestly. Are you the kind of partner that you would want to be married to? Are you the kind of partner that you would actually choose to date? And how would it feel to be in a relationship with you? Now, these sound like tough questions, but this isn't about beating yourself up. It's about curiosity and self-awareness and owning what you bring to the relationship table.
Today, we're continuing our relationship reset mini-series. First, we spoke about really liking your partner again. Then we spoke about implementing change that actually sticks. And today we're speaking about becoming the kind of partner that the partner you want to have deserves. Now, this series of topics might sound a little bit like we're saying you're the change that needs to happen and everything that's off in your relationship culture is based off your issues. But that's really not the truth behind why we've chosen these things. There's a couple reasons we've chosen these topics. One is we can only control ourselves. We are only in control of ourselves and our reactions and the way that we interact with our partner. We have no power over the choices and reactions of other people, but we also don't believe that individuals are powerless in relationships to shift the culture. And we really think there are things you can practically implement on your own to start that shift. And the second thing is we want to highlight areas in relationships that are often overlooked. It is really easy to pinpoint the issues in other people. And it's harder to recognize what we might be bringing to the table that's causing an impact in our culture. So that's what we're doing here today.
So we want to welcome you back to another episode of Honey, We Need to Chat. So my name is Blair. This is my wife, Amy.
Are you sure about that?
Yes. If you are new, so good to have you here. We are the podcast all about communication in relationships. We believe that when communication dies in a relationship, bad things happen. So we bring a lot of practical tools and tricks and tips and conversations that you can use to impact the conversation you have in your relationship. If you are a regular, welcome back. If you're on Spotify listening to this or Apple Podcasts or anything, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. So we do more than just the podcast. The podcast is one element of what we're working towards for bringing this support to couples in the home. So check out our YouTube channel. You'll see our vlogs. Amy's going to be coming out with specific coaching material as well for you guys. So check that out. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And also chuck in some comments too, because we want to be interacting with you on the topics that we're talking about. So if we don't hear from you, we can't actually journey with you. And that's our heart, is to really journey with our community in these topics as well as we navigate through these as well.
Yeah, definitely check those things out. So we're going to dive into this question today, which is, would you want to be married to you? And it is a bit of a confronting question, but it's an important one to ask. And there's a reason for that. It's important because a lot of couples live in wish mode. So they live wishing their partner was different in this way, wishing their partner would do more of this or less of this or be more like this, wishing their relationship was better, was more constructive, was more teamwork, whatever that might be. They're living in wish mode. We focus on what our partner could do differently, or we focus on what's broken in the relationship. But we rarely flip that question and ask, what am I giving? Or am I giving what I'm asking to receive? And it's a really important question to reflect on, because we're so often unaware of what we're bringing to the table, and so often very aware of what our partner is or isn't bringing to the table. So if we're not giving what we're hoping to receive, is it really fair for us to expect that in return? It's a tough question to ask and ponder, but that's what we're going to dive into today. So last week, as I said, we looked at how to create change that really sticks. And this week, we want to look at who we're becoming while we're making those changes. So the first part of this episode is to do some light but honest reflection. Reflect on the questions that I'm going to read out, and I want us to actually think about these really intentionally, as painful and frustrating as they might be. I think it's important for everyone to reflect on this stuff, regardless of your relationship culture. You might be feeling like you're in a really good place. It's still important to reflect on that. It's also important to reflect on this regardless of your relationship status, because even if you're single right now, reflecting on how you're showing up in the world and what kind of partner you would be is an important thing to be putting in place so that you can assess what kind of patterns you might be having down the track.
This has been something that we've identified as really important in our relationship. So we would get into a little bit of a tiff, we'd get into an argument, and we would find that we'd just go around in circles a lot of the time. And it wasn't until we stopped, we would notice that, oh, this isn't healthy, we're not getting anywhere, let's just pause, let's go away. And we would reflect on ourselves. And it's like, why did that trigger me? Why did I respond that way? Why am I having a problem with this? And then we'd come back to the conversation. It was a very different conversation. It was much more constructive, and we actually made ground.
Actual change, yeah.
Yeah, and rather than just going around and being stuck in that circle.
Yeah, and we talk about this curiosity thing on the podcast all the time, and that's what this is. This is one of the biggest parts of curiosity. I think we focus a little bit more on being curious about what's going on for your partner, but one of the biggest and probably the first step is to be curious about what's going on for you and why things are triggering you or why you're reacting in this way. So this is another layer of that, is being curious about yourself. So it's an important reflection regardless of who you are. And I want to ask these questions and seriously consider them. So the first one is, what is it like to share with you? Are you a good listener or do you jump in? Are you engaged or do you potentially look disinterested? And I think this is one we've navigated a bit actually, because Blair.
I zone out. I have a problem.
You probably noticed it on the podcast.
Don't look back at the other episodes, but you'll see me like looking at the roof or something. And it's like, cool, what's that doing?
But what we've also noticed is there was lots of stuff I would be sharing with you and you would just be quiet. Like, especially when we're driving, this happens all the time. I'd be like, telling something, and then he wouldn't really react. And sometimes it was stuff that I'm like, this deserves a reaction. Like, this is a horrible story I'm telling you. And it took me a while to get to the point where I would ask you and I'd be like, are you just not interested in this? And then we found out, actually, you go off in your brain and start imagining the scene and like, you're off thinking about it, or it'll be something it's impacted you. Like, you're so frustrated by it that you're actually just frustrated now. And you're thinking about what you would have done or how you would have been in that scene or something like that. And I'm thinking, he doesn't even care. He doesn't even think it's a big deal. I'm
playing a lot of stuff in my head. Yeah.
But it just looks like blank.
And that happens in the podcast. Like, I'm not just wandering off, losing interest. I'll hear what you're saying and then I just go off and visualize it.
Yeah.
Like, I play out the scenario in my head and I forget, and I'm not actually listening to you anymore. I'm still off looking at this scenario. But
yeah, exactly.
It's a gift and a curse.
Yeah. So it's a good question to ask yourself. How would you come across in a conversation where your partner has approached you to talk? How do you interact in that?
And this is like, to not talk about this for too much longer. When we identified that was really important, and it was actually strengthened quite a lot of our relationship because it was like, all right, cool. Well, where are you up to in that? And it also helped me to process what I'm thinking, and it strengthened our conversation.
Yeah.
So it's just like, all right, cool. I'm realizing I'm not talking now and I'm doing this thing. So I'm like, oh, cool. All right. Well, how can I do what I'm doing, which is visualizing the situation and put it into words? And I know it sounds funny, but that was actually identifying that helped a lot. And it helps me have that conversation with you. But also it helped you realize I'm not disinterested. I'm not switching off. I'm actually engaged in what you're talking. And that made you feel more validated and stuff too.
Feel more validated. And because I still have times where I'm like, he does not care about this. But it has equipped me with a question or a prompt that I can then dig into. That unlocks your, no, I am. I'm just.
Which is your attitude of curiosity.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's your approach of curiosity, not just assuming that I've just switched off and not caring at all. It's giving you language and it's giving me language to have a good conversation.
But what's funny about it is I don't think you would have triggered that's how you came across until I came out and said, do you not care? I don't know if I said it like that. I might have. And I don't think that you would have even, because it wasn't something you were like, you weren't in your brain thinking, I'm going to switch off my face now and go into my brain. You just did it. And so it wouldn't have even been something that you were aware of how that was impacting people until you started to reflect on what would that look like? Yeah. And you kind of laughed. I remember when we talked about it, you're like, oh, no, I'm just doing this. So you realize straight away, but until we ask these questions, there's stuff that we just wouldn't be aware of. And it's an important thing to recognize, because how you're impacting your partner is really important, regardless of the intention. And we're going to dive into that later. And for me, it's have an anxiety response a lot of the time. And so I have times where I'm really aware, like I know I'm putting off, like I just am stressed and anxious and frustrated and whatever my face is in response to this, but it's not a fair thing for me to be doing. It's just, that's my context. And I know that that's what it must look like when Blair approaches me to share these things. And so it's important for me to be aware of that so that I can unpick some of that for myself. The second one is, do you bring humor and warmth in your interactions and reactions, or do you bring stress and heaviness? And this is kind of what I just said. We can have humor and warmth, but I also know that my default was stress and heaviness. And it wasn't about that circumstance, that context, or that conversation necessarily, but just everything would be stress and heaviness. And if you think about what that would be like to approach somebody in that, it's more confronting. It's like, for me, might feel fair. It might be like, yeah, I'm stressed and I'm overwhelmed. So it feels fair to come to the table with this. But as the person approaching someone like that, that's a much more confronting experience.
Mm.
And I think about this with our kids all the time, as they'll come to us when we're stressed. And a lot of the time our stress is them, or is inflated by them.
It's around them, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'll find myself responding. Like even this morning, I didn't realize that our oldest was awake, and I put our baby back in his room at like 6 a.m. or something. And I went and hopped back in bed, and all of a sudden our oldest is standing next to the bed and freaked me out. He's just like, Mom. And I was like, ugh. And my response was like, what? And he's like, is it morning? And I was like, not yet. It was morning, just not his morning.
Yeah.
He's like, okay. And he went back and I was like, I love you. And I don't think he heard me. I was like, I love you. And I realized straight away, my response was, what? Like that's all he saw.
Intense, yeah.
I've approached my mum, and in the morning, it's the first interaction we've had together. And she's been like, what? And so then I actually got up and went and talked to them, partially because the two boys started talking. And I was like, guys, no. But also to say, I love you. I'm sorry. Like, just be relaxed. We're just going to like rest in bed. But yeah, I'm sorry. You scared me, basically. But the funny thing is I scared him when I came in. He scared me when he came into my room, and then I reacted that way. And then when I go in, he's like, "Oh, you freaked me out." So,
don't do it.
Got about. But yeah, that's it. That's a good question, a good thing to think about. How are you reacting when people approach you? Another one is, are you reliable and trustworthy? Do you follow through on what you say you'll do? Are you consistent in how you respond, interact, and show up? And this is a tough one, because we have all the reasons in the world that go through our brains about why we do or don't do things, why we do or don't follow through on things. And I'm just as bad as anybody with this. And we've said on this podcast before, we don't see the internal conversation. So unless we communicate what's going on for us, our partner only knows what they're observing, right? They might know more than that because they know us deeply and they can put pieces together. But really, all we can expect for them to understand is what we've communicated. And so we might have a bazillion reasons for why we're not following through on what we've said, why we're not, being consistent in these things. There might be all the reasons in the world, but if we're not communicating that with our partner, all they see is inconsistency, not following through on what you've said, not being trustworthy in that space. And that actually really impacts how they'll feel in terms of safety in their relationship.
Reliability is a big value of like I struggle when someone is not reliable. Or something is not reliable. It builds that frustration in me because it does build trust. Like you don't really separate reliability and trustworthy. I think if you're not reliable, we don't trust, like you lose, there's this element of trust that's gone in that as well. And I think in a relationship, trust itself is a huge thing. If you don't have trust, it's like you don't have security.
And I know this doesn't sound so much like not doing what you said you'll do could be such a light thing. Like it'd be like, I didn't do the dishes and I said I would, or I didn't get groceries and I said I would. Like those kinds of things don't seem like our relationship's eroded. But it does build into trust. It actually really impacts trust. And then there's deeper trust stuff, like not sticking to the things that are more serious as well. And that trust element, it kind of impacts all of it. It impacts, like, just because you might have fallen through on one part, the trust kind of impacts across the board. It's not really specific to certain areas. Once somebody loses their reliability or their trust, they you don't really trust them with anything. It's not just this one area. I don't trust them. So it kind of seeps into everything, and it's important. And it's not to say you can never ever fall through or fail or make a mistake or you're going to ruin this. This is all coming back to having that conversation. What is your partner seeing? Is your partner only seeing you not following through on the things you're saying and then it never gets touched on again? Is your partner only seeing those things? Or are you bringing your partner in on that conversation and saying, hey, sorry, I forgot about this. Or, hey, sorry, this is what I'm processing. I'm actually feeling my mental health is really low and I'm just not able to manage. Like, what is that conversation they're being brought in on, and what are they aware of? And the consistency in how you respond, interact, and show up is huge. And we've talked about this with attachment styles when we went through that. When you're a child, the consistency of your caregiver was the important thing in terms of what attachment style you might have developed as you grew. So it wasn't that they were really loving sometimes, but then they were really harsh sometimes. That's an inconsistency. So the inconsistency is what creates that attachment style. Doesn't matter how loving you are 70% of the time, if you've got these other inconsistent behaviors, the inconsistency is where the damage can come in. And again, that's why the conversation is important. That's why I think it's so important when you're a parent to bring your kids in on your processing. Again, you'll make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. You haven't, ruined everything just because you've made mistakes. But if you can bring your kids in on your vulnerability and your processing of that and say, hey, I'm really sorry that I reacted that way, like I did with our oldest this morning, going in and making up for it so that it's not just left there for them to put the pieces together. That's really important. And it's the same with your partner. If you're inconsistent in your responses, you're going to build a story for them. And an attachment style will probably come to play out, especially if they've got past trauma with their family, that will start to come to play out in your relationship if you're not bringing them in on that conversation and showing a vulnerability and a flexibility there as well.
So going back to the reliable stuff too, like let's go work context. And this is not my work situation at the moment, just to be very clear. So if any of my workmates are listening, I'm not talking about you.
And talking about the other one.
Yeah, the other guy. No, I genuinely mean that. All right, if we look at a work context, right? So someone that's not reliable in terms of showing up on time or following through with what they said that they would do, the frustration and the bitterness and everything that comes with that just increases over time. And so I think what's really important when we ask ourselves a question is like, well, why is that bothering me so much? Why do I get bothered by this person doing that? So look outside of your relationship too, right? So you don't have to just look at everything in your relationship. Look at outside of your relationship and the way that we respond to those sorts of things and can help bring some clarity to your situation in your relationship. And then ask yourself, well, if you're the late person every time, how might that impacts your workmates around you too. So again, having that external perspective outside of your relationship also helps you identify things that are in your relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
As well. So just trying to have those different perspectives there. So, and again, this isn't to put you down and say like, these are all the areas that you're a bad person in. That's not what we're saying
Not at all.
What we're saying is if you don't know of the areas where you can grow, well, you don't know how to take the first step. And so we're trying to help you identify where you are, where you want to be, and the steps to actually get there. And you can do that. This is exactly what Amy does with her clients, is walking through and helping them identify you already have everything that you need. You've just got to be able to see it.
Yeah.
So Amy navigates through, and a lot of stuff that we're going to be coming out on our YouTube is that as well. How to identify those steps for yourself? How do you set your own path in working through these things?
Yeah, that's a good one, because I think when you're talking about your relationship, your romantic relationship, it's a harder context to assess. Yeah. So it sometimes is easier to remove yourself and look at it from a work perspective, or remove yourself and look at it from a parent-child perspective. That one's really helpful for me, because when I think about how innocent and trusting and loving my child is and how I'm reacting to them and what I'm impacting them, it makes it so clear for me. Yeah. The work thing's really good because it takes out the emotion. Hopefully you're not in love with your workmate, Hopefully you're not at a Coldplay concert and so it does remove that to help, because when you're trying to assess your relationship, it can be so muddy and it can be the emotions that come with it can make it look less or more impactful. The kind of competitiveness that can go on and the long-termness of it. Yeah, exactly. It can make it hard to really assess correctly. So yes, if you're struggling with this stuff, great idea to think about it from an outsider perspective or a different context. So the next one is, what is it like to approach you? Would your partner feel safe and held when they come to you with concerns or challenges? Would they be confident in how you'd accept and hear them? Or would they come to you with anxiety, unsure of which version of you they're going to receive? This is a similar one to that last part of the previous one. Like, are you consistent in how you respond? If your partner would not feel safe and secure in approaching you with a concern, they likely are going to be less and less likely to approach you with a concern. And think about this from the flip side. You approaching your partner. I've heard this so many times and I've experienced it with myself, not wanting to bring something up because I don't want to rock the boat, or I don't want them to get upset, or I don't want them to be angry, or whatever the thing is. And then justifying it like, oh, I didn't want to rock the boat, so I'm not going to bring it up. That's the same thing your partner might be experiencing if you're not a consistent, safe person to bring concerns. You're not someone who will assess what's going on and take what they're saying seriously and hear them, and instead respond with some kind of reaction, or be changeable, be like really open to it sometimes, really cranky sometimes. Your partner is probably going to impact how safe they feel in terms of raising topics with you, which is still their responsibility to navigate. We're looking at what impact you can have on your culture, and this is an important one.
This is one I've really reflected on. Again, going back to that work scenario, a lot of times I find myself with a team that I manage, like we'll meet and they'll share something and I go straight into strategy. I go straight into fix it. And then I also bring that into our relationship too. Like I afterwards I reflect like, oh, damn it. I shouldn't, I should just shut up and listen. But other times, like in the moment I catch myself and then I try and backpedal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, no. Yeah. You do you. And I'm here listening. And I just vomit a lot of words because I'm trying to process that. But again, I'm aware of that. I am aware of that because I've been reflecting on that. And I'm in that process now of trying to work through that, and again, grace is a big part of this process. It's
Huge.
like the first step is identifying, it's being aware of that, and then giving yourself the grace to go on that journey to change. Change is a lifelong thing. We're never going to be perfect. We're always going to be changing. We just want to be intentional with that change and that growth. But yeah.
And again, you stumbling through that process because you're trying to implement it is one thing. You bringing people in on that and making it clear, sorry, I am trying not to jump to fix it mode is huge.
Yeah,
so that
absolutely.
Immediately gives context and softens that approach.
I had just again, transparency. I had a bad day at work yesterday. I was cranky. There was some stuff that was impacting the way that I was responding to things. And I was very short and sharp and dismissive and all that. And then afterwards, I'm like, look, I've got to own that. Like I stopped and I reflected. I'm like, why am I responding? Why am I struggling to just talk nicely today? And I was noticing I was being a person that I just did not want to be. I was being a leader that I just did not want to be. I was being a workmate that I did not want to be. And I sat with that and I was reflecting. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, these are all the things that could be impacting my mood right now. And these are all things that are separate from these people. These are all things that have nothing to do with them, but they're copying it. And so I'm like, cool. Well, now I've got to do the thing I don't want to do is I've got to call them and I've got to apologize. And I've got to say, look, this is the situation. I'm sorry. I'm dealing with this. And I took it out on you there and it's not okay. And again, that's a big part of this is identifying it. It's okay to mess up. You know what I mean? It's okay to mess up. We mess up all the time. We hurt people we don't mean to hurt. The biggest thing is if you sit with that and you're not willing to mend that or bridge that or address that
or learn from
that, you're just going to spiral and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And again, in the conversation in your relationship, if you're not having that conversation, if you're not sharing with your partner the things that you are trying to work through and why, and the reflections you've had after you might have had a disagreement or an argument or you did something silly, the conversation stops. And that's when the bad things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. The next one is, how's your teamwork? Do you accept and invite help with a light and open approach? Do you have expectations that are unmet, unrealistic, or unspoken that you project on your partner? Does your partner feel safe to try, mess up, and ask for clarity? Or would they be met with disgust or irritation? And we talk about mental load a lot on this podcast because it's huge and it's important. But one of the things that we do sometimes highlight as well is, how are you allowing your partner to help or to become that, to be that teammate to you? And if there's an element of disgust, irritation, lack of grace, lack of letting them grow and learn, and lack of letting them own that thing, you probably find more and more mental load because you just are not releasing that stuff. Why would someone push through with an irritated teacher or an irritated person that's like handing something over to them? Why would they push through to do the thing that's difficult if they don't even feel like they're able to learn? And I think you can probably think of teachers you've had in school, and the ones that were really just not engaged, not friendly, not nice, just very kind of dismissive. They didn't help you want to learn. But the ones that were like helpful, had grace for you, listened to your questions, were gentle, were curious, they were always my favorite teachers. And those classes were always the classes I did the best in, even if I didn't like that subject, because of how they approach teaching. And it's the same sort of thing here. Not that you need to own your partner's initiative in the relationship, but what kind of teammate are you being? And what kind of reception are they having when they're joining in this team? It's an important one to reflect on, especially the disgust or irritation, the irritation one. And again, when I think about my kids, this is such a perfect example because I'll just be like, it's so much harder to like teach you to do this thing than just do it myself. And I do tend to have a bit of a default irritation there. Next one is, how do you face criticism? Do you hear it, process it, and explore your role in it? Do you shut down and avoid? Are you passive aggressive or maybe actually aggressive? And this all comes back to those 4 horsemen when we're talking about those red flags in relationships. the way that you navigate conversations? Are you stonewalling? Are you avoiding? Are you passive aggressive? Are there these things coming in when you're facing criticism that shut down or are not constructive in your relationship? How do you face criticism? And the last one I've got here is, does your partner know you love them? I think this is the most important and probably should have been up the top of my list. Does your partner know you love them? Do they know what you love about them? Do you vocalize your appreciation and reassure them, or do you struggle to find positives about them at all? And this comes in a lot with contempt. You can find yourself finding it hard to even find one positive about your partner. And it's not that your partner has no positives. Everybody has some positive. Every single person would have some positive about them. So if you are in a relationship with someone and you can't find a positive, then there's something off about your attitude and your approach to them, or your hurt from. Doesn't mean to dismiss what hurt you might have experienced from them, but there's an attitude that is blocking you from seeing those things, and you need to be aware of that more than anything. Because if you're unaware of that, that's when the trouble comes in. If your partner doesn't know what you love about them, that is a problem, in my opinion. If your partner does not know what you appreciate about them, what you think about when you think about the things you love about them, if they aren't aware of those things, all they're seeing and hearing is not those things. So think about that. How would you feel if that's all you are seeing and hearing from your partner? And that's an important place to start, because that love and appreciation is something that can soften and heal so many areas of life, so many areas. So if that's missing, then it's going to make every area of life harder.
Sometimes saying the love part is one of the hardest things. Yeah. You know, when you're really in the thick of it, like we've spoken to people before about how just saying I love you can be very, very hard because of stuff that's built up, the bitterness that's built up, those words. It doesn't necessarily mean that they don't, but saying it can be very, very hard.
Yeah.
So if that's you now, like I just want to challenge you. I know it can be hard, but just look for one opportunity, like prep yourself, like go into your day, write a note or something just to remind your partner that you love them. It's just a start. It might not be easy. It softens everything because it then will help them put their wall down. That's just a little bit more, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I picture it like, you know, when you fill a glass of water and then you get to the top, if you're doing it slowly enough, it kind of builds that resistance layer. And there's scientific words for this that I'm not going to get right. No, I'm not even going to say. I was trying to remember what it is. But there's like, it kind of bubbles at the top because there's this surface tension. There we go. The surface tension is holding it together a little bit. And I feel like this kind of just saying I love you or just saying an appreciation thing can be the tiny little drop that bursts that surface tension. It doesn't mean it fixes that whole glass full of whatever you're navigating, but it can start to spill over the edge. It can just be that tiny little bit that allows things to start to move and flow and heal. And it can feel so hard. Like I find sometimes those kinds of expressions of affection, even when we're not even struggling, it doesn't feel natural or easy all the time. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. And so it can sometimes be this weird thing that like is you so put off for whatever reason, but it's also so easy to do one tiny thing like that. So if you're not trying it and you're wanting things to change, why not try it? So that's a number of questions we can reflect on. These are important questions to reflect on how we're coming across in these ways. And this is just a collection of them. They're not the questions. They're not all of the things that you might be impacting, but just ways to put your brain in that space of like, how am I as a partner? What is my partner experiencing from me in these spaces?
So we're going to put these questions up on our website as well for you to be able to go through yourself, so you can download it and fill them in, for you to just sit and reflect and go through that rather than just trying to remember everything that we've said here. It's all going to be on our website, so check that out.
Yeah, exactly. And we're not asking these questions for you to feel progressively bad about who you are as a partner. That's not the reason that we're having this conversation and this workshopping. It's just to stretch our perspective and unlock new approaches, because it's so easy to be really narrow-focused, narrow-minded on what is happening and see the problem as this isolated incident. And it is much harder to stretch our brains to think outside of this isolated experience and try to find new approaches. And this activity is to stretch our minds. It's kind of like just kneading it out. Doesn't mean that all of it's going to catch or all of it's going to be the way to navigate it, but just stretching this perspective helps us approach it in a new way and maybe does unlock new ways to approach the things that we're navigating in our relationship, the challenges that we're having with our relationship culture. So the important thing that's kind of played out all through this episode is intention versus impact. And we spoke about this a few weeks ago as well. I didn't mean it like that versus it still landed like that. So I didn't mean it like that, but that's how it came across. We talked about this, I think, in our Clumsy Conversations series that we were doing. But we often judge other people by their impact and we excuse ourselves by our intention. And it is harder to judge ourselves by our impact and excuse other people by their intention. Because as we've said through this thing, we only see and hear what is communicated and what's on the table. And we're only responsible for what's communicated to us. We can't expect our partner to be reading between the lines, especially if we're not reading between the lines. So it's so easy to judge others by their impact and excuse ourselves by our intentions. And it then becomes really easy to be blind to our impact and come across really hypocritical or really not constructive in terms of working on the culture in your relationship. So one activity that you can use, one practical tip is to use the mirror effect. And that is what we've kind of just done. But if my partner treated me the way I just treated them, how would I feel? So some examples of this is, if my partner always left wet towels on the floor like I just did, how would I feel? Or if my partner dismissed my story because they were distracted by their phone, like I might have just been, how would I feel? Or if my partner was sarcastic or rolled their eyes in a tense moment, like I just did, how would I feel? And those are important things. Like, it's hard to catch yourself in those things, but when you do, just being like, how would I feel as the recipient of that is a helpful tool. This is about building empathy and self-awareness. And that's what healthy couples have, is empathy and self-awareness, and curiosity I'll throw in there too. Because empathy is something we practice. It's something that can be built. You might not have it naturally. It's something that can be built. And self-awareness is something that helps us regularly put ourselves in the shoes of other people. That curiosity and self-awareness in the shoes of other people and recognize what we're bringing to the table. And those things help us to create safety, trust, and repair things faster in our relationship than if we're just ignoring them.
It helps as well as when you know of a circumstance that you've already discussed before, right? So for example, what I've been doing recently is, like, I know I joke a lot, right? Like, I muck around a lot. I play a lot with you. And sometimes you're like, well, where's the playing and where's the flirting? But you haven't been able to tell that line. And so what I've been doing recently is like, all right, well, just being aware, because I just muck around. I'm not even really intentional. I don't really think about it. I'm just being silly. But I could just do it for too long, right? So something I've been really trying to do is, like, it's not that you don't be silly and don't have fun, but where's, like, knowing where the line is, or just trying to find the line while you're doing it. And, like, I think even might have been this morning or yesterday, I was mucking around and in my head I was internalizing this. I'm like, all right, I've been mucking around for a little while now, I'll just stop. Like, I don't need to go any further with that. So just that, again, just knowing that Amy has struggled with that in the past. So you'd have to try and make up a scenario of, like, oh, I wonder how Amy would respond to that. It's like, well, no, pick something that you've already spoken about and assess that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, if people have been if your partner's been raising things with you, that's a great place to start, because it is what it is. And you might think, oh, that's not fair because of this, and this. Again, that intention versus impact thing. It's not fair because I was just having fun. Like, I was just being fun. I was just having fun. And that's great. But again, that impact versus intention. The impact, if I've expressed, I find it hard when it's all just jokey, that's the impact I'm getting. So that's valid to look into. So it's really a good place to start when you're trying to assess these things. So this is where it gets tricky though, because as we've said, owning your side, it doesn't mean you own the relationship. Like, you're not in charge of fixing everything. Us highlighting these things is not to say you're the problem. You're the one responsible for all this bad culture going on in your relationship. You're responsible for your partner's reactions and responses because you're not showing up this way. That's not at all our heart behind this. Like we said at the beginning, the heart behind this is showing you where you are, where you have control, where you have power to change things. And that is the only thing we've got, is our own ownership of the stuff that we can own. We cannot control what our partner brings to the table or how they react. We can't, but we can control how we come to the table. So owning your side doesn't mean carrying the whole relationship. This is not an exercise about saying, oh, you have relationship problems. Well, you're the problem. Like, that's not why we're saying this. It's just about expanding our perspective, like I said earlier, helping us see things from a different perspective and helping us feel empowered by noticing where we can adjust. And it is easier said than done. But this is not about perfection. And it comes back to that half size it exercise from last week, which is we're noticing something that we've noticed is a pattern in our reactions, or we've noticed this is how we're coming across. It's something we want to change. We notice it, we cut it down, we cut it down, we cut it down to the smallest manageable step to start implementing change. And like you said, change is long-term. This is something that we need to be flexible and changeable and learning our whole relationships, our whole lives. And so it's not about getting it right and fixing it. It's about moving in that direction. Notice one of these things. If something's come to your mind over this conversation, cut it down, cut it down, cut it down.
Sometimes as well, like sometimes there's so many things that we're trying to work on at once, and it's overwhelming. And again, this is down to the conversation. Like sometimes I've had to say to Ames, like, look, I if she mentions like, you're still doing this or something, and not any scenario. So
you're still doing this.
But like sometimes I've felt overwhelmed with the amount of things that I'm trying to cover. We've just had to have the conversation of, okay, I see that, I hear that, I can't do it all now. So what I'm going to focus on is this, and I hear it, I'm seeing it, and I address it. I will address it. It's that commitment to working on things. Just understanding you can only do so much, right?
Yeah.
There's only so many things at a time you can work on. So if you're trying to do 10 different things that you're working on, you're going to be so overwhelmed with that. It's just committing to that journey together. It's communicating where you're at. Don't just assume that your partner knows where you're at or what strategy you have in place to actually work on yourself. They won't know any of that. And to have that expectation isn't really fair. Just, again, communication, communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. We want change that lasts, like we spoke about last week. It has to be sustainable. It has to be manageable. And if you do try to change too much, try to navigate too much, you will burn out. And that's not sustainable. It's not actually going to last. It's not going to be implemented properly. But that conversation is huge. Saying that, literally naming that, being like, yeah, I'll work on that slowly. I'm getting there. I'm navigating this. This is where I'm at. Just want to let you know. And also the other thing with this too is if you're anything like us, you might be reading through this list and feel yourself getting a bit defensive during some of these things. Many people are like, well, it's really easy to think, well, my partner is worse at this than I am. My partner's not doing this, this, and this. And it's easy to fall into that defensive thought with these things. Like, yeah, I know you're saying this, but also my partner doesn't do that. Yeah, I know this is happening, but my partner's worse at this. And we get it. Like, totally understand that. But the truth is, you are the only person you can grow. You're the only person that you can implement things in. You can help encourage your partner, but we're talking about you and what you can implement in your relationship today. So if you have been listening and you felt yourself defensive, question that. Be curious about that. Just have that be a trigger to explore and reflect and do some of these flipping exercises or that mirror effect exercise. And if you found something and you've realized there's areas you've been unaware of and you want to work on things, here's just a summary of what you can do practically to start implementing those things. So use the mirror effect, that mirror check. How would I feel if my partner did what I just did to me? Ask yourself, would I want to be married to me right now? And when you catch yourself wishing for a change in your partner, ask yourself, am I showing up as the kind of partner that the partner I wish I had deserves to have? If you want your partner to do more around the house and be more involved, are you showing up? And this is just a curious question, not an accusation. Are you showing up as the kind of partner that a partner that's more involved around the house deserves to have? Someone gentle, someone with grace, someone who lets them own things. Are you showing up like that? If you want your partner to be more engaged in affection and that sort of thing, are you showing up as a partner that deserves a partner that's really engaged in showing you physical affection and showing you appreciation? And these are important questions.
I was going to say, and it's also back to the mirroring thing too. You know, if I'm wanting affection from you, but I'm not giving it to you in the first place. Like, you know, again, I'm not owning that for you, but mirror what you're wanting as well.
Because if we're expecting that from our partner and we're not giving it, do we deserve to expect that from our partner? If we're not willing to do what the partner we want to have deserves to receive, are we deserving of expecting more from our partner? And it's tricky because it's easy in the affection side, for example, it's easy to get withdrawn and put your walls up and stuff because your partner's not showing you affection, especially if you've raised it before. It is easy to get into that place. But then the issue becomes that just continues the story. That continues to build its own story. So it's an important question to ask. Another practical thing is just notice one area of growth and shrink it down, half size it like we talked about, to a doable, manageable step. The smallest manageable step, if that's what works for you. And the fourth one, which again, I think is one of the most important ones I should have had at the top of the list. Practice vocalizing what you love and appreciate about your partner, even if it feels awkward. Adjust your approach and even your physical softness. So your tone of voice, your body posture, your eye contact, that sort of thing in terms of your interactions. Practice showing your partner your love and showing your partner your appreciation for them.
Vocalizing it is the word you said at the start. And I think that is really easy to stop doing in a relationship. It's very, very easy to stop doing that. So in leadership development, there's 4 key words that I got taught, and I teach all of our leaders in our work now. And the 4 key words are affirm, 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 affirm. And in leadership, that's so important, to be coming with affirmation and identifying like the good things about your team. And again, like we learn these things in business world, we learn these things out there in the workforce, but when do we bring that back into the home? And so I just want to give that to you. The 4 key words are affirm, 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 affirm.
Easy to remember.
So easy. They're very similar words. But, when you say something about me, when you notice something, it's like, I love this about you. Like even something silly, like sometimes you're like, I love your beard, right? It's like,
I say that all the time.
You say it all the time. But it's like, no, you might be like, oh, you've got a good beard. It's like, it's such, in terms of priority for me, it's on the bottom. I don't care, right? That much. But when you notice something about me, it stands out and it pumps me up. And it's like, oh, sweet. Well, this is what I love about you. I want to give that back. Like, but if I don't hear any of that ever, you notice it. You feel kind of like asking the question, why am I here? Right? Like, you can be so easy to fall into that place. So affirm, 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 affirm. Vocalizing what you love and appreciate about your partner has so much power and weight behind it.
Yeah, definitely. So those are some of the things you can start right now, practical steps. And I can't guarantee you that this will fix your relationship. But what I can guarantee you is that you adjusting these things and working on these things and having this self-awareness is going to impact the culture of your relationship in some way, and is the first and only steps you can take, right? Like, they are the most important, and the first steps you should be taking is assessing where you're at and what you're bringing to the table. And then everything else can follow from there. So just to summarize what you can reflect on this week, would I want to be married to myself right now? And if not, why? And if yes, why? Like, what is it that you would love to be receiving? 2, what is one thing I could model this week that I wish my partner did more of? And model it without that stock. I just be careful. Like, don't be like, look at me doing the dishes.
Yeah.
Look at me. That's all I've got. Look at me. Maybe because Blair keeps doing the dishes. What is something you can model with a gentle, loving heart to your partner that you would love to receive more of? And just pick one of these micro shifts doing that breakdown step so you can get it down to the most manageable step you can. So when you start showing up as the partner you'd actually want to be married to, you create a culture that your partner can lean into. And that's just a final thought there.
That was a good thought. Good chat, guys.
All right,
See you next week.
See ya.
Bye.